Folks, hello. My name is Brian Lowe. I'm the Executive Director at the Vermont Council on Rural Development. Welcome. Thank you all for being here. I know we've got a long line of people still coming in for pizza. And so folks who are in line, feel free to come in, grab a seat, and you can go up and get pizza during the meeting. So you don't need to wait in line if you don't want to. It is impressive to see this many people already gathered here in the room and a lot more on Zoom. If you were here in November, it's great to see you back. If you weren't here in November, that's great too. You don't need to have participated in November to be a full participant in the meeting tonight. And tonight is all about action. It's about Putney choosing 3 priorities that the community wants to focus on in the future. That's a tall order. We've got 22 different priorities listed behind us right now, and we're going to narrow that down to 3, both in the room and on Zoom at the same time. Before I go into how we're going to do that, I want to make a couple thank yous, and I want to ask a couple people to come forward and to speak. First, I want to thank the folks at the Putney Central School. We would not be able to do any of this without them. And so Steve Head, Steve Napoli, John Sessions, Nancy in the front office, if you could give them a quick round of applause, they've done a lot. I also want to thank the folks from BCTV who are here tonight. As you might imagine, taking a series of votes with 250 of your closest friends, both virtually and in person at the same time, is a complicated endeavor. We've done it before, but it would not be possible without folks like the folks at BCTV. So if you don't mind giving them a round of applause as well. To the folks on Zoom, we are going to share more details about exactly how to participate in the meeting. You've got 2 folks from our team with you, Alyssa Johnson on Zoom and Jenna Koloski on Zoom. You can send them questions if you need to during the meeting through chat, but chat is otherwise disabled, and they will explain more about the process as we go. Before I go any further, I'd like to ask 2 people from the community to come up and say a few words. First, I'd like to ask Josh Laughlin to say a few words as a representative from the Select Board here in Putney. VCRD does not work in a community without an invitation from the Select Board. We don't work for the Select Board, but we want to make sure that when we come to a community, we're working collaboratively with the projects that are already underway. And so I wanted to thank Josh for that invitation and also to thank him for the warm welcome that we've had here in Putney. Thank you.
Thank you. My gratitude to everybody that Brian has pointed out, definitely, as well as particularly to Brian and Hannah, who have been here through this process with us. When they first approached us 6 to 8 months ago, somewhere in that range, I had not heard of them before. This was not a process I was familiar with, but right from the beginning, they inspired confidence and clearly understood what they were trying to achieve and understood the importance of trying to help a group of people achieve what they find important. So I'm thrilled to see so many people here. I know a lot of you. I don't know a lot of you, which is great because it's nice to see new faces in the group. I also just want to put in a quick plug. I am in my 17th year on the Select Board, and I am not running again. So in March, there will be at least my seat coming up for an open seat on the Select Board and one other at a minimum, because either Peg or Charlie took a 1-year term. So there's one 1-year term, and then my term will be coming up. That, amongst the many, many other volunteer groups, committees, boards, commissions in town, we need your help and we want your help. And again, it's great to see you all here, but come to meetings and come and join a committee. Put yourself out there in a way that you can be committed and integrated into the process in a meaningful way over a longer period of time, please, because it's hugely important. And if we can all do our part, then we all work together as a community. So on that, back to Brian. And oh, and one more thanks. I know it'll come up and he's coming up, but Mike and Kim have done a huge amount, as well as Eleni from the diner for food last time. And, you know, just so glad for everybody taking part in this. So thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And folks, not only food last time, but Mike and Kim put together the food this time. So during the meeting, if you want to go up and grab a slice of pizza, that is pizza from the general store, courtesy of Mike and Kim. So thank you, folks. And Mike is the next person I'd like to come up to ask to come up to say a few words. In every community that we work in, we always try and ask around, is there somebody in the community who's deeply committed to the community, but who is also a really good listener? Someone who is kind of a center point in the community that can be something of a kind of point of contact for us, or the chair of this process. And one name came up many times when we were asking around, which was Mike Cosco. And we're very grateful that he's willing to be the chair of this process. So I'd love him to say a couple words as well. Mike.
All right, hello. I think we should recognize that this is, again, an outstanding turnout for a thing like this. And just keep in mind that the next meeting is also extremely important, because by the end of tonight, we need people to commit to actually moving the things forward. I don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of exciting to see what turns out, but you know, we're all going to do this together. And me as the chairman, I'm just going to stay in touch with the task forces that get formed, and I'll be their contact to make sure things move forward and everybody gets what they need to make things happen. And you know, one of the things we talked about what Putney might need in the future is a pizza shop. So so we created a pizza shop, and we do pizza on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and we developed this Sicilian pizza to do very large crowds like this. So you can stop by. Oh, and the gift shop. So this is December, and the gift shop is in its glory. So if you haven't been to Phoenix Gifts upstairs, yeah, all right. And that's all I got. So thank you for coming.
Thanks, Mike. Mike, thank you. And folks, I do mean during the meeting, if you want to get up and grab food, you should absolutely feel free to slip over and grab some food. I know a lot of people came out of line so we could get the meeting started on time, or close to on time. So tonight is about action, right? Tonight is about making decisions as a community about what the 3 priorities are that you're going to focus on in the coming months. It's extremely important that you do so. We said this in the last meeting, but I think it's worth reiterating. No one is coming to Putney with a solution for the challenges that you face, right? But the energy to make those changes, wow. The energy to make those changes is here in this room, right? What? Oh, okay. It wasn't supposed to be a call and response. I just had to turn my paper over, but I appreciate that. What we see time and again is that communities that focus their attention on a couple clear priorities and rally around those priorities are able to bring energy and resources to bear on problems, right? Nothing begets success like success. So we are eager and also very curious to see what you choose tonight. The last word quickly, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Hannah Carpino. The Vermont Council on Rural Development, it's a neutral, nonprofit organization. We don't have an agenda. We do not know what is best for Putney. We assume that you do. This is the 87th community that we've worked in. And we've been able to go to 87 over about 25 years because the process works. We've seen communities build childcare centers. We've seen them build wastewater. We've seen them build different streetscape improvements. We've seen all kinds of new community events started. Every town is really different. Our job is to be a neutral facilitator, to hear and listen to what you have to say, and then to connect you to resources once you've made decisions about what to prioritize. So I'll turn it over to Hannah to explain this in more detail, but we are very excited to be with you here tonight. Thank you.
Hi, all. I'm Hannah Carpino. I'm the Community and Policy Manager at VCRD, and I hope a lot of you have gotten some really annoying emails from me. Hopefully a few. So I just wanted to take a second and run through what the community visit process is like. I know some of you have heard this spiel before, but some of you haven't, and I feel like it is worth reviewing sort of before we get into things. We're also going to run through the agenda real quick, talk about what we're going to be doing tonight, and thank you all for your patience. I know that the voting and the deciding is the exciting part, but this matters too. So this process, our future Putney, is happening because we've been invited by your select board, as Brian mentioned, to put on our community visit process. It's 3 meetings long, and we serve as a neutral facilitator. We also work to do outreach and engagement leading up to these meetings. And overall, this process is driven by you all. So some of you were in November's meeting, which is awesome. If you remember, November was 4 forums sort of focused on bigger picture ideas, and that was here at Putney Central. Putney residents were invited to have a free dinner and come share their thoughts on 4 different topic areas, which were housing, youth, families, and aging, economic development, and community connection. So over the course of those forums, we got to hear from hundreds of residents. It was really incredible turnout. And then we also did paper surveys and digital surveys, and we ran a youth forum for the middle schoolers at Putney Central and the grammar school and the homeschool community. So we now have hundreds and hundreds of ideas generated by you all. So when we came here today, a month later, we've sort of worked to analyze those hundreds and hundreds of ideas, and we've brought you 22 that we heard a lot about. So those 22 ideas are all in the white packet if you picked it up by the door. They are also up on the wall, and we will also be discussing them a little bit more in depth later. But tonight is going to work like this. We start with these 22. We will get to have some discussion about it. We will vote that down to 8. We will get to discuss some more. You can champion the ideas that really matter to you. And eventually we will settle on 3. And those 3 ideas for action will become task forces. When we leave here tonight, you will have the opportunity to sign up for any of those task forces that interest you. So those 3 ideas will be turned into action by you all, hopefully. I will plug the task force sign up again at the end of the meeting. I will email you about it so many times. I'm going to try to turn the page. But ultimately, it is driven by you all. And I think that's really important to remember as we go through the voting and discussion, that the things that you're voting on are the things that are going to be driven by you and the community. So January 17th is that next meeting. I'll explain a little bit more about it at the close of the evening. But for tonight, I would love if everyone could just kind of look at their agendas really quick. Sorry if I'm not talking into the mic properly. I'm trying really hard. If you look at your agendas, we are going to walk through those 22 action ideas. Again, they can be found in the white packet, and they have a little descriptive paragraph. They're up on the wall. We'll review those all. We will read them out loud. We'll discuss them, and we'll have a first vote. Once we are down to the top 8, we will discuss some more, champion the ones that matter to you, and we will vote again. Brian is going to explain the voting a little bit more in depth when we get there. And Alyssa, who is my colleague who is on Zoom, we will disconnect briefly so that she can explain to the folks who have joined virtually how they are going to be able to participate and vote virtually. After we have our final 3, we will place task force sign-up sheets right by the door. And as you leave, we encourage you all to sign up, continue to get updates from us, and return January 17th for what effectively is the first meeting of those task forces. So that's the agenda for tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Brian soon so we can start reviewing those action ideas. But thank you all for your patience, and we really appreciate you all being here.
All right. Thank you, Hannah. Can folks in the back hear me? It's good? Okay, great. And folks on Zoom, we're going to turn to you with more detail later. But when it comes time to share your opinions, we need you to raise that virtual hand. If you don't do that, chaos ensues, okay? So we need virtual hands from the Zoom folks and hands, physical hands, here in the room. So as Hannah described, there are 22 sheets on the walls and on the lift over here that you see around us. And these come from dozens and dozens, actually quite literally hundreds of different ideas that we heard November 14th in those youth forums, in paper surveys, in digital surveys. All kinds of different ideas came from folks in the community, in addition to the ideas generated on November 14th. All of those have been compiled into what we hope are really clear ideas for action. And if you look at that white sheet in your packet, you'll see that a lot of these are kind of ideas that we saw again and again and again, and related ideas tied to those. Does that make sense to folks? Okay. So all of these have been compiled into clear ideas for action that you can choose among tonight. 3 things to kind of share for some of the last pieces of context. First, if you choose an idea, we will help you form a task force at the end of the night. Hannah said it, but it bears repeating, right? A community task force that will shape how this action actually is approached in Putney. Second, all the different ideas that you shared in the form that you originally shared them, right? Like all the different ideas have been compiled into a long list that we also save. We don't want to lose different ideas that we've heard, whether or not they're connected, right? All those are included in a final report which will come to the town. Third, not every action idea is going to be selected, right? Like of these 22, the community is going to choose its top 3. We don't lose anything. We keep all these details together in that final report. And in other communities, we have seen times where something isn't chosen by the community, but people still decide to work on it, right? In Swanton, there was an arts council that was formed, even though it wasn't a choice from the community. And in Craftsbury, there was a childcare center, actually, that was formed as a result of the process, but it wasn't one of the chosen priorities. Does that make sense to folks? We don't lose anything, even if you don't choose what's listed here. All right. Now, this may seem a little silly, and I'd love for folks on Zoom to participate as well, but we're actually going to read these ideas together. It's not trivial, okay? It's not silly. It is one of those kind of hard-won pieces of wisdom from working in 87 communities, right? You need to make sure you're on the same page and that you actually see and reflect on what these ideas are before you choose among them. So in a moment, I'm going to ask for some volunteers to help actually read these different potential action ideas. Does that make sense to folks? And folks on Zoom, is this making sense? I hope. Okay, so got to move my papers around as well. Can I have a volunteer to turn? Ooh. I'm going to stay standing over here. Can I have a volunteer who's willing to read the first action idea on that white sheet? Yes. Oh, and I'll bring the mic to you. Sorry. So we'll do 3 from in the room, and then we'll go to Zoom for 3, okay? I'm just grabbing my list of ideas here as well. Okay, thank you for volunteering.
Number 1, the first one is, do you want me to read the heading? Yes. Expand community events. A series of annual events for Putney could help to bring the community together more often. Events could include educational programming such as craft and dance lessons, youth programming, community suppers, an annual talent show, more opportunities to highlight local businesses, a Putney parade, and more. A task force could build an outreach and invitation plan that would teach people of all ages.
Reach people of all ages. Great, thank you very much. Could I have a volunteer to read the second, support local businesses?
Support local businesses. A task force could form to connect and support local business owners and entrepreneurs with the goal of boosting and revitalizing the local economy. This could include a business association and collective events and marketing materials such as a brochure, website, and local loyalty program. The group could also help to efficiently connect businesses and entrepreneurs with education and technical assistance.
Thank you. One more from here in the room.
Improve community communications. Expand communications among community members, including an improved town website, increased iPutney participation and engagement, and a print and online newsletter to share events and resources and keep residents informed. The focus in particular could be on communication between the school and community, as well as across generations in town.
Thank you. Anyone on Zoom who's willing to read the next one? Revitalize Putney's downtown. We need a brave soul on Zoom. Oh, I see two hands. I'm going to go to Linda first, Gail and Guy second, and Laura third. So Linda, do you mind reading Revitalize Putney's downtown?
Yes. Revitalize Putney's downtown. Work with local property and business owners and regional and state experts on a plan to address vacancies in the downtown. A group could plan efficient use of space for housing and retail, as well as improve walkability and pedestrian safety. Additionally, the group could work to beautify the downtown with murals, public green space, other public art, and tree and flower planting. In filling vacancies, many residents expressed a need to focus on local services such as a salon, laundromat, cafe, and restaurants.
Great. Thank you, Linda. Gail and Guy.
Advance trails and pathways. A task force could form to celebrate current outdoor recreation assets and advance a variety of new walk and bike opportunities. The group could create walking loops with sidewalks and trail connections, hold trail maintenance days and group hikes, and explore the expansion of public trails, including a bike path along the river and an ADA accessible trail for the community.
Great. Thank you, Gail. Laura, could we ask you to read Increase Childcare Access?
Okay. Just 1 second. Let me just make this larger. Okay, here we go. A group could come together. Increase childcare access. A group could come together to support early education entrepreneurs looking to open daycare facilities and explore other creative community-based solutions to address the need for affordable childcare for Putney families.
Great. Thank you. Could I ask for a couple more volunteers from the room? Ooh, way in the back. We're going to give you a workout here, Galen.
Expand community support and resources. Improve access to critical resources for individuals and families in need in the community. This could include bringing free mental health services to Putney, increasing outreach and building connections to resources, expanding and supporting the food shelf, and finding ways to address isolation and build connection. Additionally, a group could create a community fund to help address critical needs that arise in the community.
Engage youth in the community. Putney is a community with a wealth of educational institutions and resources. A group could form, led by youth in the community, to connect young people across the community to advance their ideas for the future of the town. The group could plan events for youth, advise the town on issues important to youth, and help to better engage youth on town boards and committees.
Thank you. Anyone else in the back while I'm here?
Expand arts in the community. Okay. Putney is a community known for creative economy assets such as Next Stage and a large network of local artists and artisans. A community arts task force could form to build on these assets by expanding arts opportunities for local artists and ways to share art with the broader community. These could include the development of a gallery to showcase local arts and crafts, increased arts education, murals, and public art, and the development of a local theater group to put on plays and performances.
Maybe two more back here, and then I'll run up to the Zoom.
Develop a co-working space. Develop a community co-working space to provide shared office space for remote workers or entrepreneurs and serve as a central location to share business support and resources. In addition to providing office and community space, this location could offer internet access educational opportunities, and workshops for businesses, entrepreneurs, and the broader community. It could also serve as a way to attract new people to Putney or a venue to connect with neighbors.
One more volunteer in the back.
Support aging in place in Putney. Improve the ability to age in place in Putney by helping with internet connection and digital literacy, housing solutions, access to healthcare, and connections to resources and services in the community. A group could improve connection across generations and reach out to senior community members to identify needs.
All right. Is there another 2 volunteers on Zoom? It's like therapy, folks. I can wait all day. All right. So we'll go to McKenna and then to John. So McKenna, it would be improve bike and walk safety and access.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Improve bike and walk safety and access. Many Putney residents express a desire to improve the ability to walk and bike Putney roads, but shared concerns about safety. A group could form to improve safety with added bike lanes, sidewalks, and crosswalks at key locations. The group could also consider traffic calming measures in the downtown, including signage and speed bumps, as well as general road maintenance strategies.
Great. Thank you. We made it through the first sheet, folks. So John, do you mind taking the lead on expanding access to local food and farms?
Sure. Expand access to local food and farms. Increase community access to gardening, growing, and farming opportunities. Work could include the development of community gardens available to the public for growing, as well as creating programming and educational opportunities for all ages. A group could reach out to farmers and community members to identify needs, share opportunities for agritourism in Putney, and help community members connect to these opportunities.
Great. Thank you, John. Back in the room, any volunteers to read a couple more? I'll come right back.
Develop a community center. A community center or hub could create a space for events, connection, gathering, programming, and sharing of information and resources. A group could form to explore the development of a new community space or reinvestment in and expansion of the current Putney Community Center. Residents shared a particular interest in a community kitchen, indoor recreation space, as well as space for youth to gather and hold youth-focused events and programming.
Expand and improve community recreation facilities. Putney residents of all ages expressed a need for improved and expanded recreational facilities. A task force could identify the needs and build a plan and funding to improve existing facilities or develop new recreational options. Some ideas include a community playground, basketball courts, pickleball courts, an ice skating rink, pool improvements, and a skate park. Residents expressed a need for a program to share and lend recreation, hunting, and fishing equipment and gear so everyone can take advantage of recreation opportunities.
All right, 2 more volunteers in the room, and then we'll go back to Zoom. I'll be right there.
Advance social and community justice. A group could bring together community members, organizations, committees, and town leadership to advance social justice efforts, as well as bridge community divides. The group could work to integrate and expand existing efforts, such as the Local Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and could consult with equity experts to improve access to community resources and services, restorative justice, and more.
Try and seek value, folks.
Develop housing solutions. Many residents see a need for more affordable, safe, and quality housing for seniors and people of all ages and income levels. A task force could come together to develop housing solutions that meet the needs and character of the Putney community. The group could work with regional and state partners and experts to assess current needs and explore options for including new development, co-housing models, multi-generational housing, a community trust, and more. Additionally, the group could focus on a review of zoning and other regulations to improve housing development opportunities and identify any infrastructure needs there may be to support housing solutions.
All right, back to Zoom. We're almost there, folks. Back to Zoom for 2 more. Are there 2 more volunteers on Zoom willing to read? Guy, and then Kim. Thank you both. Guy, do you mind reading Attract and Welcome Visitors and New Residents to Putney?
Attract and welcome visitors and new residents to Putney. A task force could form to identify and implement strategies to document, showcase, and market Putney assets, amenities, businesses, and attractions to draw visitors to the area. The group could develop a web presence, brand and marketing, improve signage, especially off of the highway, and curative visitor information. The group could consider a welcome center for visitors, as well as a welcome wagon project to welcome new residents and share local services and resources. A local mentoring connection or meet your neighbor forums could help to welcome residents and build connections.
Great, thank you. Kim.
Advance mutual aid and time sharing. Strengthen and build participation in mutual aid efforts and build out opportunities for sharing resources and time among community members. The community could create an easy portal or system for sharing volunteer time, skills, tools, recreation equipment, car rides, and more.
Great, thank you. Could I get a couple more volunteers in the room to finish off the list here? All right, 1, 2, 3. I'll be right back.
Improve public transportation. Identify and promote ways to increase public transportation options. The group could develop a ride-sharing network and work with local and regional partners to explore other solutions to allow for improved opportunities and access to transportation in the region.
All right, there was a second volunteer.
Advance sustainability and climate resilience. A task force could form to identify and implement initiatives to improve Putney resiliency. The group could identify strategies to reduce reliance on fossil fuels and support the adoption of alternative and local energy sources. The group could bring EV charging to the community and explore community solar projects. Additionally, residents of all ages expressed a need for local recycling center to address community waste.
All right, and our last volunteer is also our first volunteer, so kind of a nice symmetry there. Thank you.
Improve river access. Celebrate the natural asset of the river by improving points of access with a bike path, river trail, and or a pocket park with a bench and steps down to the river.
Okay, folks, thank you. Now, a big question. Is anything important missing from that list? Right? We try our best to capture all the different ideas and consolidate them that we hear, but is anything significant missing from that list that we just read together?
In my opinion, a maker space would be very needed in this community.
So I'm gonna say it again. The suggestion is that makerspace is something that might be missing from this list. And I might ask, is the co-working space something that could potentially include that? If a task force was formed focusing on a co-working space, could that potentially include a makerspace as part of it? Okay, you're saying yes. I'm seeing some nodding heads. Okay. Other suggestions? It's a good suggestion. Miss.
Can you hear me through my mask? All right. I was hoping that there would be something under the advanced sustainability and climate resilience in for two concerns of mine. One is the increased incident that we can count on that roads will get washed out. Right now, many of our roads are just patched. And the town crew has done an amazing job. It's getting tougher and tougher. The other thing is there's nothing in this plan which doesn't relate to people, which relates to the flora and fauna of our town that aren't people. And I think it will be a very lonely place if we don't have animals, diversity. So I think in this second to last piece, we need to include something which puts our attention at the forefront of preserving our biodiversity.
So there's two separate pieces there, but just on the kind of question of biodiversity, flora and fauna, is there a specific action idea that you have related to that as well?
I'd like to see a group of Putney citizens, we have many naturalists, create recommendations for landowners and business owners to assure that their properties and/or enterprises don't reduce biodiversity and even enhance biodiversity. So there needs to be a group of people who will develop those suggestions.
Thank you. Right back. So the suggestion is a task force could form to look at ways to increase and preserve biodiversity among flora and fauna here in Putney. Okay. I think that is a separate idea. Thanks, Hannah. Okay. I'm going to come right back to you. And I just want to be mindful of time as well, okay? So I will come back to you in the back. You had a second suggestion about climate resiliency and the roads piece. Are you comfortable with there is an action idea on climate resiliency. I think it's the second to last one on the sheet. If a task force formed there, could they include roads as potentially part of that? Okay, thank you. I'll come into the back here.
Okay, it's been a year now, and this is not on the list. I have been pleading for over a year when we lost our business on a weekend that we do not have security in our town after 10 p.m. in the evening, and we have no coverage on the weekend. And we just saw what happened this past week to Darrow's and to the Harlows. Please put this on our list. And the general store, yes.
So I would phrase that as kind of a task force could form to explore public safety in Putney. Is that a fair summation of your? Great. Okay. Yeah. All right. One or two more. Is there anything else really significant that's missing?
Yeah, I'm really excited to vote, but I just want to say there's a premise in the entire document that everything is a group will do this, a group will do that. But the reality is that we also have a government. We have a town government, and perhaps the task forces will recommend roles for the town, but I see a lot of roles for the town ultimately. And I also would say that we can only get so far as a task force if we're authorized fully by the town to proceed. So there's some question of procedure in my mind, but I don't want to let that get in the way of what we're doing right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And is this a new idea that's missing? Okay.
Only because I heard it a number of times at the last meeting, and since is a park. And I know that it says recreation, but it seems very specific to activity. But probably it could fit in there. Maybe it's just like a comma park.
It's a great comment. We had this debate amongst our team for several iterations. In the kind of river access, in the recreation space, there's some references to green space, and we could see task forces in either of those groups focusing on that kind of green space and park question. Okay, I thought I saw a hand in the back here. Yeah. Oh, do you mind waiting for the mic? Because the folks on Zoom can't hear you if you don't wait for the mic.
I just thought the same thing. I was looking frantically for the park mention. And it is on expand and improve community recreation, a community playground. It does say playground. No, it's not a good. I got you.
But I think it's a good point, and I think there are ways task forces on the recreation space or on the river space could focus on public parks as well. I'll be right over to you. One more comment over here.
Very quick. I'll just add an ing to that. Parking.
We did hear that. Thank you. And I think that is captured in some of the downtown pieces, but definitely hear you.
Just a comment that on the third page, where it talks about developing a community center and expanding improved community recreational facilities, even on the first page when it talks about revitalizing Putney downtown, it mentions a public green space and other public arts places. And throughout, calming the traffic on Main Street at both ends from the Putney Co-op area to the downtown, and parking for Next Stage and parking which has been handled for Yellow Barn and other assets in the community. But in develop housing solutions, affordable, safe, and quality housing. So I see a combination, open green park space, accessible with walkways that those that are physically handicapped could use, is part of the Putney ethos, I believe.
Hey, thank you. I want to turn to folks on Zoom for a moment here as well. And I see your hand, but I see Guy has had his hand up here as well. Are there folks on Zoom who are seeing something significant that is missing? Oh, I'm sorry, Guy, that was an old hand. But the offer remains for folks on Zoom. If there is something significant that you see missing, please raise your hand. And there's one more comment here. Oh, actually, we'll go to Doug and then we'll come right over to you. Doug?
Unfortunately, I don't have my video on. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Thanks, Doug.
I live on Main Street, and it occurs to me there's no place to do a U-turn except in my driveway. So I think we should have signs directing out-of-towners and big rigs where they could do a U-turn.
It's a great point, Doug. I do think there's two areas where if a task force is formed focusing on the kind of downtown businesses or the events group, which does touch on kind of things like marketing, I think there's an opportunity for better signage referenced in those.
Great.
Traffic and roads. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
We have a lot of great athletic opportunities and sports for kids whose parents have money, and there are kids who grow up in Putney never owning a bike, never owning a sled, never owning skis, not getting to participate in anything. And I just think we need to have some motor sports equipment and some programs that include everybody.
Thank you. You're getting a round of applause. I think also if in the recreation piece, there's a call out specifically for some of what you're saying here around there's a lot of desire, and we heard this in the youth forums as well, for some of these outdoor recreation access needs, right? Like some of the fishing, hunting, motorsports, bikes, gear. Oh, do you mind waiting for the mic so the folks on Zoom can hear you?
Particularly what I see missing in this is the mention of children and the mention of children having access to sports that children can do, which is generally not motorsports or hunting or fishing unless their parents do it. But there are so many great sports opportunities in terms of especially biking and skiing that there are some kids who never get a chance because they don't have the equipment and there's not really any program that includes them because all the programs cost quite a bit of money.
Hey, thank you. And I wonder, Hannah, if we could maybe rephrase that last piece. Yeah, in the existing one. Yeah. So we're gonna amend that proposal to include a specific emphasis on children based on the comment there. And I've got time for maybe one or two more. Yep.
I just wanted to make a clarification. Am I correct in understanding that these are what you're summarizing from what you read on our list, but it's up to the group that forms, the task force that forms, to name what direction they take. which could include what she just recommended or something completely different.
That is correct. It's set up this way so we can make decisions, and then the task forces can define the approach they want to take. Oh, we're going to go to Zoom, and then we'll come back over for the last comment here. Deborah.
Hello, everyone. Putting together some of these ideas that have been brought up that you've mentioned and have written down so wonderfully, the idea of a gathering space for children in the downtown area for after school, that would be other than the library, which is really not a safe space for them to be playing. So the idea of an open space that would be downtown where children could gather. Okay.
Great. Yeah. I think there are two pieces there. There's a community center, and we don't know where that would be located, but a community center could address that. And also there are some references to open spaces in the downtown when it comes to recreation and the river walk. So final comment here.
Thank you. I think that we should have some focus on protecting the character of Putney going forward, of making the many wonderful people that are here in Putney a feature of Putney. But what I'm really concerned about is the digital age coming to Putney with the self-driving cars, the LED street lamps, and the types of cameras that will need to be on the telephone poles and those sorts of things. And I wonder if we ought to be planning ahead to make sure that Putney remains looking like Putney and acting like Putney and not looking like some 3D future place with all kinds of cameras and eyes and radars so that self-driving electric cars can come around. And that's my concern.
Thank you. It's, I guess, two quick responses. One, there is reference to digital literacy when it comes to the question of kind of aging in place, but is there also a concrete action idea around the kind of preserving Putney as it is?
Well, this could be combined with one of the others in that we could put little plaques around with pieces of history and photos, and the people that have been wonderful artisans here, the fact that we have more artisans than any place in the country per capita. We could be featuring this on, well, I'm not probably involved something else, but I think that most people don't know what's planned ahead for the kind of digital age coming in, and I think we should protect Putney from being surveilled, from the street lamps and stuff. I think that's a worthy effort. Does that make sense to you? Did that answer your question? Okay.
It does. Thank you. All right. This is the last call for kind of new ideas that are missing. Yep.
I don't know where this fits, but I can remember this being a big issue at town meeting a number of years ago, and it's been on everybody's minds ever since. And there was a committee for it, but it failed for a number of reasons. But the point is energy efficiency, educating people about energy, accessing all the money that there is for energy. At one point, we were trying to get EV chargers, but we needed to have a coordinator that was paid to do all the work that we had to do. We were 3 volunteers, but I don't know where it fits in, but it seems like energy is something that is really important. And I don't know if it can go in the sustainability section or where, but somehow there needs to be some kind of focus on energy.
If I could make a quick suggestion, that kind of second to last action idea talks about EV chargers, solar. We could expand it to include kind of energy as well broadly. Energy education is part of that kind of climate resilience proposal. Yeah, just what is existing. Yep, perfect. Okay. I think we need to shift gears, unless I see a hand in the back, but is there something that's significant and missing from the list? Okay. This is the final one. I'm sorry I missed your hand before.
No, that's okay. There's a lot of conversation. I mean, all the conversation is wonderful and great and moving forward in Putney. But I think we have to take also a moment to remember Putney's history and record our history going forward in some recognizable way. We have a historical society that perhaps we should more strongly support in order to document not only today and our movement forward, but how we got here today. Yeah, our history. This is all about going forward, but we need to recognize our history.
So making sure as we go forward to respect our history. And I think, are you comfortable to suggest that that is something a task force could take on almost any of these different concepts, remembering the kind of history and how the town came to be as part of that work? Okay, thank you. I think we need to shift towards voting, folks. And I think it's really important to have this kind of conversation and see what is missing. But now I think it's time to choose. Oh, I see Jenna has her hand up, and I think Deborah's hand up is from before. Jenna.
I think so. Yeah, I'm just wondering, just being on Zoom, it would be helpful to clarify the ones that got added, if you could read them out. It was hard to follow a little bit which ones are new. That might be helpful to hear.
Yes, to the flora and fauna one, I did my best to paraphrase, but obviously this is just the gist of it. We added 2 fully new ones. The first is a task force could focus on the protection of flora and fauna, promoting biodiversity in Putney, including recommendations for landowners. And the other one is a task force around public safety in Putney. And then there were several smaller amendments made to already existing ideas. Should I read those too?
I think we followed most of those. I just wanted to make sure we knew the ones that were on the wall. And just so everyone on Zoom knows, as Alyssa put in the chat, those will be added to the list for voting when we go to vote. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so it's time to shift and choose among these different priorities. And we're going to do this in 2 rounds. I think that's really important to emphasize. There's 2 separate votes tonight. The first is down to 8, right? So you're going to choose your top 8 priorities. And so Hannah and Margaret on our team are going to be passing out in the room dots to people to actually literally stick on the sheet so you can see what others have voted, and it's very transparent. For folks on Zoom, we're going to disconnect you in just a second, and Alyssa and Jenna will talk you through how to make the votes virtually. You are also going to have 8 votes to distribute as well. So Alyssa and Jenna, I think we're going to cut you off here. Okay, thanks. Give me the sign. All right, I think Alyssa, great. So we've got a team passing out dots for you now. Here is the key for making this work. As you get your dots, we want to try and vote efficiently because we're going to try and have about 150 people or almost 200 people move through this relatively quickly. So when you get your dots, please go up and place them for the priorities that you want to see happen. You can place them however you want to place them, right? You can put 8 dots on one thing if you would like. You can put 4 on one and 4 on another. You can put 1 on 8, right? But everybody has 8 dots, and they can distribute those on the different priorities that they want to see. Once you're done voting, we're going to tally them up and bring you those 8 finalists as soon as we can. Any questions about the voting? The new ones? You can treat them the same as you would any of the others. Oh no, take the dots and you actually physically walk up to the front of the room and stick those dots on the sheet. Yeah, good question. Any other questions? Okay. Great, go for it. Hey, so folks in the room and folks on Zoom, if you can hear me, just a quick update. Voting is done. We're scoring up everything in the back of the room. Mike Cosco is keeping a sharp eye on us to make sure we score everything accurately. And we will be back to you after we add in the vote totals from Zoom with the vote totals in the room, and we will give you the top 8. I suspect it will take 5 more minutes. Okay? Thank you, folks. All right, folks. So we've got some results. There are 8 choices that the community has made. And I'm going to read them off because I know a speaker is right in the way for some folks here. The first is expand and improve community recreation facilities. The second is support local business. The third is public safety task force, a concept that was proposed tonight and has made it to the next round. The fourth is advance sustainability and climate resiliency, noting that that could include energy and energy education issues. The fifth, revitalize Putney's downtown. The sixth, engage youth in the community. The seventh, develop a community center. And the eighth, develop housing solutions. So these are the 8 priorities that made it into the second round between the Zoom votes and the votes in person. And we're a couple minutes behind. So I'd like to shift us to the next phase of the discussion, which is championing these priorities. We want to know, do you see these as actionable issues that could be successfully addressed? Is this something that's within the power of the community? And we'd like to invite folks for a period of time to have a discussion where they champion why they believe one of these 8 is something the community should pursue, right? So the framing here is positive. We want to make sure you are stepping forward to champion one of these 8 that you believe others should vote in the next and final round, okay? Because we have 8 priorities right now, and in a couple minutes we're going to vote a second time and choose the top 3. So if you have strong feelings, if you believe in something that is listed, one of these 8, this is an opportunity to step up. I'm going to come bring the mic to you. I am going to hold on to the mic, right? Because we love everybody, but sometimes people want to talk quite a bit, okay? And so I will lovingly pull the mic away if you talk too much, okay? But what we really want to hear is why you believe the community should vote to advance one of these 8 priorities. And that's true for whether you're on Zoom or whether you're here in the room. We want to know why you think one of these priorities should be championed, right? And remember, you are choosing areas where you want to build a task force as a community to take on one of these projects. And we're going to help try and connect you to resources to make that happen. The last point I'd make is that nothing is lost here, right? There are 22 different or 24 different priorities that were put forward by the community. We will include all those in the final report, and nothing precludes you from working on one of the things that was not voted on here separately outside this process. Does that make sense to folks? I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads. And a quick question. This is the only question we're going to do, and then we're going to go right to the championing. Oh, beautiful. He wants to start off the championing. Okay. Then I think that's what we're going to do. All right?
Okay. There's a lot of good ideas up there. I think that maybe the place to start is in developing a community center, especially with regard to the last thing you said there. If your particular project that you voted for or most interested in didn't make it, a community center is where you may meet up with other people who are interested in making Putney better, and they may be interested in the same thing you're interested in. It didn't get on this list, but you can develop it from there. That's where communication can grow from, and you can develop a group of people who are interested in the thing you're interested in. Let's start there, because that can be the beginning and where the beginning of everything is.
Great. So community center. And I see a number of hands are already up. I'm going to come around to those hands, but 2 last quick logistical things. One is, folks on Zoom, I will turn to you in just a couple minutes. We'll make sure we get you and opportunities to share included here. And 2, there is one exception to the kind of positive championing of an idea. And that is, if it's already happening in the community, tell us that as well, right? We don't want to do something that is redundant, okay?
Well, support your local business, because without local businesses, you got nothing.
So again, we are a local business. We were just discussing in the back. Again, I really want to see us up our task force in the community of Putney. Greg has lived here his entire life, and we haven't looked like we look right now as far as 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. policing and nothing on the weekends. If you watch our crime, I think you can track the hours that things are happening. The other thing that is very interesting is many do not know that last Monday, I was privately messaged at 40 Main Street to get our littles in the building because weapons were behind us. There was a horrific domestic on Old Depot Road.
And I'm going to pull the mic away a little bit, but it's championing a public safety task force.
People need to know what is going on in this community. And I feel like the village is taking the hit. We're over $1 million in a rebuild of a building that was set on fire last year. And the Hills cannot not accept what is going on in the village. Just look at last week alone.
All right, so championing public safety. Let's do 2 more here, and then we're going to go to the Zoom.
Yeah, I want to put in a big thumbs up for Revitalize Putney's downtown. And my thinking on that is that if we go with that, it also brings in local businesses. Obviously, the focus is going to be more on the center of town. And personally, I'm okay with that. I feel like if we get the downtown really rocking and rolling, the rest will follow. And the other reason to go with the Putney's downtown is that it automatically includes the arts. It includes local businesses, a lot of our local businesses, including Rod's. And it includes community events as well. There's no reason why we can't do the parade downtown. So I feel like we've got to lower this down to 3. Go with Revitalize Putney's downtown.
So 1, 2, and then I'll get back
I wanted to champion, I can't actually see that far, something housing solutions. What's the first word? Develop, there we go, that makes sense. Develop housing solutions. When we developed Putney Mutual Aid during the pandemic, one of the constant things that was starting to come up is when folks go into crisis, it puts housing at risk for folks in our community. And so looking at ways of supporting folks to stay in Putney and to make sure that we have creative solutions in that patchwork quilt. And it can also be done in concert with some of these other goals here.
I just wanted to point out on the biodiversity and climate resiliency, Putney does have a very knowledgeable and hardworking conservation commission. They meet frequently and are working on exactly these issues, so please support them. Energy, on the other hand, we have a committee. I speak as a member of that committee. We are basically dysfunctional at this point from lack of interest. And I say that with some embarrassment, but it's true. I think it would be a great thing if fresh blood stepped up and came up with new initiatives, and we made a clean start on this very important area. Thank you.
I see a lot of hands in the room. I'm going to go to the Zoom, and then I'm going to come back to hands in the room. So folks on Zoom, can you raise your hand if you want to champion one of these priorities? Susan.
I've heard a lot of desire for community in these conversations, and I think a community center would address a lot of the other priorities. I think you could engage youth through a community center programming. It would support local businesses. It could also revitalize downtown if it's located downtown. So I would champion that one.
Great, community center. Thank you. Eva.
Eva.
I'm sorry, Eva.
Yeah, that's all right. Develop housing solutions. Now, I take a look at the general store. I take a look at the co-op. I take a look around town. There's no place that's affordable renting for folks that work in those places. It's not there. And it's gone to Airbnb. So we need to regulate Airbnb so we can have some access to affordable and housing solutions in town.
Affordable housing solutions. Other folks on Zoom. Okay, I'm going to go back to the room. Any other thoughts here? I see a couple. I'll start on this side and I'll head over there next. I'm holding the mic. Hold the mic.
All right, we're going to share the mic. All right. I would actually also support Eva's assertion that we need more solutions for development downtown and all over Putney. All you have to do is look at all the people who want to work here, and the teachers in the schools, in PCS, at Putney School, everywhere. The kids who work at the co-op. I mean, these are the people, when we talk about affordable housing, that we're really trying to serve. And I think it's really a shame that the co-op has to close when it snows because everybody's living over in New Hampshire and can't get here, or that the teachers at Putney School have to live out of state in order to be able to teach here. So anything we can do to improve affordable housing here, I think, is a big plus. Thank you.
So developing housing solutions.
I'm not going to touch your mic. I respect the mic. I'm also going to do a champion in for the community center. I really feel like it could encompass this whole idea of recreation. I feel like it'd be a really good place to start engaging youth and bringing youth forward and saying, hey, what do you guys want to see in our community? And it would give us a chance to have a place to come together and share ideas for all the other things that we want to do to the town, because I think that list shows us that we have a lot of interests and narrowing it down is going to be tricky. So let's find things that can overlap as much as possible so that we can continue building from these 3 projects we picked tonight.
I agree with a lot of these champions, and so I'm not going to repeat them. But I've been championing the Putney pool for many, many years. And so expanding and improving community recreation facilities seems really vital, both because we could improve what we have and there's so much room for growth. And it just like what's been said before, there are overlaps in that particular project in many of the things that have been discussed, but I'd like to champion that one.
Okay, sorry. Other folks, sorry, I thought you had your hand up. Other folks in the back of the room who want to champion something, who want to believe in one of these 8 different priorities that are currently on the board.
I'm not championing, but we do have a community center that we could use that's available.
So there is a community center, and so the point is you could develop it more, invest in it more, or look at building new, and that's something a task force could take on and consider. Great. Oh, here, I'm going to come right around down the line.
Hi, I want to champion advancing sustainability, and I'm actually going to just say resilience, since it's a fungible concept, whether it's climate or anything else. As we learned during Irene, July 26, 2021 storm, and COVID, resilience is extremely important, and we need to be thinking about that as a community. We've had some setbacks. Mutual aid became incredibly important. We see with the food shelf and other things that resilience is essential, and I'd like to see us work on that more extensively.
I'm just wondering if it's possible to combine support local businesses with revitalize Putney's downtown so that we would, optimally have one extra spot to determine, because it is one and the same.
Okay. All right, so I want to repeat your question because it's an important question and I want to make sure everybody hears it. The question for folks on Zoom and folks in the room is, can we combine 2 of these different initiatives, the supporting local business and revitalizing Putney's downtown? Okay, you could do this, okay? And this is a great question, and it is a question that comes up in every community that we've worked in since I've been with VCRD. I would urge a little bit of caution before we go forward, and here's the reason. Right now, you've got 8 really separate, distinct ideas that a task force could focus on and advance. If you combine too many things back together, you end up with a really challenging set of problems to face. That said, there may be a good argument to do this. I'm not trying to, but I think our bias here is to try and keep things narrow and achievable, because remember, there's going to be a task force that has to do this, right? So if you want to proceed, here's how we would propose doing it. We would ask you to make a formal proposal to combine, if you want to do that, and then we would ask the room and Zoom, this is going to be challenging in a digital environment, but we've done it before, to see if they would support that combination. If we see a significant majority, we're going to combine them. If it's close, if it's 50-50, if it's hard to tell, we're not going to combine them. Does that make sense to folks? Okay, so can I ask you, would you want to make a formal proposal to combine these two concepts? Okay. All right, so we have a formal proposal to combine support local businesses and revitalize Putney's downtown. Any questions before we go to a vote on this? Here, hang on a quick sec.
I'd just like to point out that revitalizing Putney's downtown includes both ends of Main Street. And revitalization might mean something very different from retail businesses and restaurants. It might mean a central open green space for people to gather and convene or something like that. So I would speak against the proposal.
Okay, and I want to just hear, are there other specific questions about how this process would work?
Oh, well, not necessarily about the process. I guess my question is, downtown is one set of businesses, and I think there are more businesses in Putney that aren't downtown, so I do think that they may be two separate things.
Okay, let me turn to the folks on Zoom. Any questions from the folks on Zoom before we take a vote here? Deborah?
I had a question about the two different
Then I'm going to ask you to hold that question. If it's two separate things, we will come back to you. But let's take a vote on this first. And does everyone understand what we're voting on? Okay, I'm seeing some confusion. So I just want to reiterate this because it is important. And I see hands in the back too. I'm not going too quick yet. The vote before you on Zoom and in the room is, do you want to combine supporting local businesses, which is one of the 8 final priorities, with revitalize Putney's downtown, a different one of the final 8 priorities. And if you do this, we'd want to see a significant majority before we would combine them, right? So not 50-50 or 51-49, but a significant majority of hands in the room and on Zoom. All right, final question, then we're going to go.
I have a question about the process. So if people did vote to combine and then we had 7, does then the issue that was number 9?
No.
So
a great question, but you'll be down to 7. Yes, a great question. Okay. All right, so is everybody ready to vote? Okay, and for folks on Zoom, I'm going to ask you to put your hand up if you are in favor of combining these things and to leave it up. And that is your virtual yellow hand. So if you are in favor of combining supporting local businesses and revitalizing Putney's downtown, please put up your yellow hand now. And if you are in favor of doing that here in the room, please raise your hand. In favor of combining. All Putney business. So, okay, so I'm going to just call out one more time. So, Alyssa and Jenna, do you guys mind counting on the Zoom side and giving us a sense of whether it was overwhelming or kind of closer to the middle on the Zoom? So it would be combining revitalizing Putney's downtown with supporting all business, right? All right, so one more time. Do you mind putting your hands up one more time? If you are in favor of combining these things. All right, in the room, it is not a significant majority. On Zoom, only 15. Okay. Okay, then this does not combine. Okay, this is not combined. That is a great question. There's at least 30 we can see. 54, thank you. Thank you, Hannah. Yeah. So 15 of 54 voted in favor on Zoom. Good question. All right, we're back to championing a priority. And we're just based on the experience we had in terms of counting the votes, we're only going to do 2 or 3 more minutes of championing, and then we're going to move to the vote because it took a long time to count last time, and I want to make sure we have time to do that accurately and get you out at by 9. So put your hands down on Zoom unless you want to champion a priority. Okay, so I've got Deborah. Is there a priority you want to champion? And then we'll go to Amy.
Hi. I have a suggestion for putting 2 together, which would be the engage youth and the improve community recreation facilities. because I think that's going to include the youth. Thank you. That's better. I could see it. So that combining those two, it feels like the same thing to me, really. Engage everyone in the community and expand and improve recreation facilities. And then
and Deborah,
my
do you mind? I'm going to repeat
suggestion
that.
I don't know how specific I can get, but the gym that you're using right now is also, I don't know if that is available for the community to use.
I think that is too specific for where we are now, Deborah. I would say, I want to make sure we act on your proposal, which is, I'm going to repeat it so folks in the room.
Reason why? Can I give a reason? Because you could put up probably 4 pickleball courts in there, and it's great for every age group.
Okay. Hey, thank you, Deborah. So the proposal,
the public school gym.
And Deborah, I don't mean to interrupt you. I just want to make sure that we have time to actually vote on your proposal here, which is an interesting proposal, right? So folks in the room who may not have been able to hear Deborah's proposal, the proposal is to combine engage youth and community with expand and improve community recreation facilities, okay? So we just talked about this. It's got to be an overwhelming majority to combine, or not overwhelming, but a significant majority to combine. And so I'm going to ask if you are in favor of this combination to raise your hand now on Zoom. And if you are in favor of this combination, to also raise your hand now in the room. Yep, so it is a vote to combine engage youth and community with expand and improve community recreation facilities. So if you are in favor of that in the room, please raise your hand. So Deborah, there are a couple in the room and there are a couple on Zoom, but it is not a majority. All right, we have time for 2 more champions, okay? I'm going to do one here, and because you guys have spoken, I'm going to go to someone who hasn't spoken yet. Okay.
Hi. I just want to say out loud, and you can hold me to it, but engaging youth and community, I will definitely work to get a youth committee for the town and getting the resolution and getting the youth represented in our town government. So you can hold me to it. I'll help support that. Karen's right there. She just saw me say it. And just another plug for the community center. I think there are 7 or 8 of these on here that can really be the existing charge for getting a community center going. It can really support our local businesses. I think having a hub for communication, all of it. I'm really hopeful for that. Thank you.
Okay, and I see many hands, but I think we're going to run out of time here because we do need to go to a vote. And so the last person is someone who hasn't spoken yet. Here you go.
I'm just going to also plug for the community center because more plugs is more plugs. And I think it's important also to remember that develop doesn't necessarily mean create. So there is certainly a space that is intended to serve that purpose right now, whether it's the best space or not, a committee could work on deciding. But if it is develop doesn't mean totally reimagine. It can mean work on the space that exists, and it's really a need in this community.
Okay, thank you. Folks, so I know there are people who didn't get a chance to champion. I want to just acknowledge that and also acknowledge that this is a huge turnout, and this is a town with a lot of energy. So I'm sorry we couldn't get everyone who wanted to champion something, but because it was so difficult to get everybody in efficiently on the voting process last time, I'm going to move us to that now with a couple additional directions, right? We're always trying to learn as an organization. So you're going to vote for 3 things now, right? On Zoom and in person. And Alyssa and Kim, if you want to disconnect us, we can have Alyssa start giving directions to the folks on Zoom because the details in the room don't matter to the folks on Zoom. But in the room, when you get these 3 dots, if you could come in and go left to right, I think that will make it much more efficient for us in the room. Ruby. That is a great point. So, okay, so if you are a parent with a child that is in the childcare, why don't you come up while I'm talking, and please just cast your vote. And then for the rest of us, as you get your dots, come right on up, but a couple requests. Go left to right, so right around this way, and after you voted, please just step back out of the way to give people more space. And the last question, please be very careful of the cords. We don't want to lose the Zoom folks at the very end. Okay? Final question.
At the last meeting, at the very end, one of the people who was before, they said, let's talk about the ARPA money and using that for an economic development or a grant writer and it hasn't come up yet, but let's take that money, make more money for the town, so we can actually facilitate more of these things occurring. We need to be smart about how we use this money, and this, what I'm seeing here are going to be mandates from the town through this meeting, because there's enough people participating, we have more voices than we've had in a long time.
Okay, so the point is that the town currently has lots of ARPA money. Maybe that is something that could be used to apply to some of these priorities. What I would say to that, it's a great point.
Hire an economic developer and grant writer to bring more money.
Okay, and also to hire an economic development and grant writer to bring in more money to the town. This is a vote about what the community wants to see. It is not an appropriation of town funding. I want to be really clear about this. This is not an official town decision, but I think it's something where members of the ARPA committee are actually here in the room listening, and so I think that it's informed in that way. All right, so come on up and vote. Put your 3 dots in. Please go left to right, and don't knock out the electronics. Thank you. Hey folks, so the results are in. Putney has voted to focus on revitalizing the downtown, developing a community center, and developing housing solutions. Congratulations to you all. It is no mean feat to go from 24 different priorities to 3 in the matter of about 80 minutes. So let me turn it over to Hannah, who's going to share a couple thoughts, and then I'll close with a couple thoughts, and we'll get you home a couple minutes before 9 o'clock.
I'm going to quickly explain again a little bit more about step 3 and how these task forces are going to take shape. I know it's been a really long night. Thank you all for staying with me. So we have 3 task forces on the wall. These are the 3 things you all have decided to move forward with. In order to make that happen, we need you all to sign up for these task forces. At the door, there are sign-up sheets for each one. Additionally, I'll be sending out an email with a link to do it online. We want to make sure that folks come to the 3rd meeting on January 17th and get to work on these task forces. So that 3rd meeting is effectively the first meeting of each of these groups. We'll bring you all together and then break out into those 3 task forces. And VCRD facilitates, once again, a discussion about how each task force will begin to move forwards. We bring with us people who can offer expertise in that area, technical assistance, and funding to help these task forces get off the ground. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So this 3rd meeting will be the same time slot as this one, 6:30 to 9 p.m. Location TBD. So, keep an eye on your email. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything important. And it will be a Tuesday after a 3-day weekend. Thank you, Ruby. So again, as you leave today, please make sure you sign up for a task force. Let your friends and neighbors know if you think they'd be interested. Make sure you're on our email list and we will keep you in the loop. I really, really hope that we see you all after the holiday on January 17th. I think I hit all the bases. That's all.
Awesome, Hannah. So I want to reiterate 2 things Hannah said, right? We've got these task forces that you can sign up for as you walk out the door. Folks on Zoom, you'll have a link for how you can sign up with that task force, and there'll be a digital way to do this as well if you don't sign up tonight. The other thing I would just want to emphasize again that Hannah said is we are going to come back on the 17th with a resource team, right? Technical assistance providers, funders, all kinds of people with different skills who can help advance these 3 specific priorities in Putney. And the other thing I want to do quickly with respect to Hannah is say thank you to Hannah. This is Hannah's first time with this meeting, and to the whole VCRD team. So Hannah Carpino, Kim Roop, Margaret Gibson, who I don't know where she went, and then on Zoom, Alyssa Johnson and Jenna Koloski. It is a big effort to pull off a hybrid meeting like this, and I really want to applaud that team, as well as the school, BCTV, and the Putney General Store in particular for helping make this all come together. So we talked at the beginning of the meeting about how no one is coming to solve the challenges that you face, but that the energy in the community is pretty unique, right? We work in all kinds of different towns. A lot of people have turned out in Putney, and the energy in this room is an answer to some of these different challenges, right? Channeled through these different task forces. I want to close out tonight with a couple of quick comments, and I see a question.
What can we search for in our
Do you mean we sent you more than one email? So if you search for VCRD, go to our website. It'll send you to a website we've set up for the town for this process. VCRD, Vermont Council on Rural Development. All right, so the poet Amanda Gorman, who some of you may know, says that America is not a broken nation, but that it is an unfinished nation. That it's not pristine, but that it is striving towards a better future, because we know that inertia or inaction will be the inheritance of the next generation. The energy in this community, your willingness to step forward for your community, for your hometown, for your families, is something to be a reason of great optimism. It's a reason to have great optimism about the future. You're putting yourselves on the line by signing up for these task forces and trying to build for a better future in Putney. I know that the future is uncertain. I totally get it. But democracy requires that we step forward as citizens or residents or community members to do our share and advance these kind of shared public interests. It really feels to me like, as someone who's not spent much time in Putney before this process, that you all have really done that tonight. And so I want to thank you for giving your time and your commitment to this community here. And I look forward to working with you on January 17th. Thank you.